Hello everybody, meteorologist Brad Warner here with Region Weather Live, and I wanted to do just a quick little update on this storm system that's going to be running through South Dakota, far southeastern parts of Minnesota, Tuesday on into Tuesday night, and especially for Minnesota, southeast Minnesota through Wednesday. So this is starting off on Tuesday morning, and this next low pressure system coming out of the Rockies, bringing snow across western parts of South Dakota. Plenty of snow, especially up in the higher elevations. Now, as this kind of dips south a little bit, some of that moisture kind of gets drawn in with it. And so you notice most of the higher snowfalls are actually out in western parts of South Dakota to start with. And it's really not until we get more into Tuesday night and early Wednesday morning when this low pressure system begins to eject more so out of the north and east, and we begin to draw in more moisture in from the south. We actually have a warm front here a little bit further to the south, kind of extending off this low pressure. And as the warm moisture comes up out of the south and overruns that warm layer, that warm front, we begin to accumulate some rain and snow across southeastern parts of Minnesota. Now, some of these areas could be kind of intense in nature, as is really the case a lot of times when you get kind of these bands that pop up with this overrunning moisture type of scenario that's going to take place across southeast parts of Minnesota. So it's really going to be a tight band and kind of a narrow cutoff for some of you areas. And a little closer look here at about 7 a.m. Central Time, 6 a.m. Mountain Time, we can see a pretty good band of snow begins to set up across northwestern parts of South Dakota. Perhaps some snow showers, maybe even a few rain showers out across central and eastern portions at this point as well. By the time we get to about 10 a.m. Central and about 1 p.m. Central Time, again, that snow picks up a little more, especially across the higher elevations of the Black Hills. The snow and rain showers slide just a little bit further to the south. Gets into south central parts of South Dakota. And here's where that low kind of begins to dip a little bit to the south. We lose some of the moisture and the intensity across the west. We've got just some light snow and some rain and snow showers across central and eastern portions of South Dakota by this point. And this is right around 7 p.m. Central. This is about 10 p.m. Central Time. Same type of thing, really not a whole lot has changed. Some snow across the central and east. Perhaps a mix of rain and snow showers begins to move into southeastern parts of Minnesota at this point. And then after midnight to around 1 a.m. on Wednesday, again, a little more rain shower, perhaps a little more snow showers across southeastern parts of Minnesota. That snow begins to end more so across parts of South Dakota. So really our focus becomes far southeast South Dakota and into southeast Minnesota at this point. 3 to 4 a.m., the snow picks up across the far southeast part of South Dakota. So Sioux Falls on south, we're getting down to that Sioux City, Iowa area. And then we kind of get that transitional area. It's got some sleet in here. I don't know. I think folks, what we're going to have more so is probably a rain and then just a quick little turn over to snow. It's going to be very intense in some of those areas in between the rain snow line. So you might be getting a decent shot of rain and then just to the north, some pretty heavy snow. I don't think at this point we're going to be dealing a whole lot with the freezing rain or the sleet, but boy, wherever that snow does set up, it's going to be intense at times. This is going to be around 6 to 7 a.m. Wednesday. A pretty good band of snow down here, kind of in that southern portions of the Twin Cities metro area, down to Fairmont, to Blue Earth, Albert Lee, Owatonna, Rochester, Red Wing area. You're going to be getting some pretty intense snow bands by this point. So unfortunately, right during that rush hour is when some of the heaviest snowfall is expected on Wednesday morning. Now by 9 to 10 a.m., that cold air sinks just a little bit further to the south and east. So now you're starting to get into St. Charles and Winona and La Crosse. Could be getting into that snow, but still some pretty intense snow bands possible still down in that southeastern parts of Minnesota. Perhaps just a little bit of rain left in the far southeastern parts It's still around that 9 to 10 a.m. time frame. And then that northern edge is really, really going to be a sharp cutoff, I think. We've got some pretty good bands going on in through here, but it's not going to take much. You're going to be seeing perhaps a fair amount of snow in the southern parts of the metro, and then you get from Minneapolis on northward, and perhaps you might not see much more than a dusting. Just depends on how everything exactly lines up. Now, of course, at the same time, should this track kind of wobble one way or another, some of those intense snow bands could just shift enough a little bit further to the north. So now, unfortunately, you're talking areas in the Brooklyn Park, Andover area. Those areas further on the northern parts of the metro might wind up getting more snow than previously expected. So it's not going to take much, folks. Look at this, just this little bit of shift here. These differences between the two lines that I've got drawn really isn't a whole lot, and that's all it's going to take for the difference with that snowfall. So really a tricky forecast, especially across that Twin Cities metro area. It's going to be a tough one, kind of determining exactly where that cutoff is going to occur. Now, once you get around noon to 1 p.m., the back edge starts to kind of slide a little more to the southeast. That snow begins to slip a little more to the far southeastern parts of Minnesota at this point. Once we move on to about 3 to 4 p.m., that snow begins to lighten up finally. So finally, by the time we get into the afternoon hours, that snow begins to dissipate a little bit. And then once we get to about 6 to 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening, we're just left with a little bit of light snow. So how much we talking? Well, these areas in red, and again, notice that line just kind of in the southern metro, you're talking Apple Valley, Lakeville, Farmington, and then areas down to the south and east of there where we could see 6 to 10 inches of snow, and then just a narrow band here. Again, a little bit of a wide variety, 2 to 6. I normally don't like to go that wide, but just given that even a slight shift to the north and east will really change things quite a bit. So I've kind of got a little bit wider variation than I normally have. 2 to 6 inches within the yellow areas in through here. And for the remaining areas, southern half of Minnesota and across the remainder of South Dakota, we're looking at a trace to 2 inches. More than likely, it's going to be closer to that trace to 1 inch mark, but a few localized areas could pick up just a little more. And then, of course, out into western parts of South Dakota, where we're looking at 6 to 10 inches across the far northwest, and then 2 to 6 there in the yellow. And then, of course, those uncertain areas here circled. A shift either way is really going to change things a lot. Even if, say, it shifts just a little bit further to the south, then that's going to spare some of you guys in the southern parts of the metro from getting 6 to 10 inches. You might wind up with only a couple. So a narrow band of some really intense snowfall, and that should make for a fairly tricky forecast. Now, on top of this, kind of draw in the most likely area for the heavier snow in the southeastern parts of Minnesota, then, of course, across western parts of South Dakota, and we overlay the wind gusts. So now this is Tuesday evening around 7 p.m., so we're looking at 30, 35 mile per hour wind gusts across southeast parts of Minnesota. This is midnight or so. And then once we get to 6 to 7 a.m., those winds begin to crank up here across far southeast South Dakota, southeastern parts of Minnesota. We're looking at 40 to 50 down here, guys, down in Sioux City, Iowa. They begin to crank a little more as we get into the afternoon hours. Oh, boy, yeah. Again, that snow right in through here, and unfortunately, right where some of the strongest winds are expected to occur through the afternoon hours. 40 to 50, maybe 55 mile per hour wind gusts right in that area, right in the same area where we've got the best chance for heavy snowfall. So, boy, it's going to be really bad travel for you guys down in especially this part of Minnesota. Wouldn't be surprised at all, really, if we see a little bit or a few road closures down there. As we get into the evening hours on Wednesday evening, again, we're still continuing with that 45 to 50 mile per hour winds. And it's not until we get into the overnight, once we get to 11 p.m., midnight, maybe 1 a.m., before the winds begin to slack off. So with all that in mind, the National Weather Service here has issued a winter storm watch as of Monday night. And just kind of reading over the wording here, a strong late season winter system will move northeast through the region beginning Tuesday night and continue through Wednesday. Rain will transition to a wet snow. That's the thing, folks. This is going to be a very wet, heavy snowfall from this, so hard to shovel out. Some sleet may mix in during the transition period. A narrow band of heavy snow accumulations will likely occur northwest of a line from Preston, Minnesota to Neillsville, Wisconsin. Additionally, strong winds of 35 to 50 miles per hour will lead to whiteout conditions at times. Blizzard conditions, accumulations of 2 to 8 inches. Winds could gust as high as 50 miles per hour. And gusty winds, along with that heavy snow, could potentially bring down some tree branches as well. And one other thing to just keep in mind as we go into the weekend, we've got perhaps another little system moving through our area. This is Sunday morning. And take a look at the different models and what they show. Some variations and some can be fairly intense on the snowfall. So it just depends here. But nevertheless, just a little something to keep in mind. We might get another shot of snow as we go on into the weekend, as it looks like another little system pulling out of the Rockies. It's just a matter of how much will it affect our region. So be safe, especially if you're traveling across southeast Minnesota going on in through Wednesday. Looking not great at all. We're definitely going to be seeing some heavy bands of snow down there, some wind gusts of 50 miles per hour, perhaps more in some areas. Blizzard conditions, visibility's down to 0. Wouldn't be surprised, like I said, if you see some road closures. So plan accordingly if you have some travel plans down in that part of the state going through Wednesday. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Warner. Everybody have a good day.